So just to highlight why we're here. So as you know, the real estate market, the real estate landscape's always changing. It's nice to be ahead of the curve, know what's going on, and I feel that this group is going to be a resource for that. Forging valuable connections across the country is amazing. You never know when somebody in Chicago might have an opportunity for you in San Francisco, or vice versa. We all need resources. We want to have great people to connect with. Now, I think the more important thing is this is a mastermind group, different than what we do in Highrise Networks, which is really a networking group. So in this group, we're going to have a lot of discussion around topics. Now, once we get back past the formation time of this and we go to a real meeting, which should be in a month or two, then we're going to have a roundtable discussion, but then we're going to have a mastermind discussion. And that's where one of you brings forward a topic that you might be struggling with in your business, or it might be an opportunity. You might be thinking about moving into a different area within the real estate. So we're going to help you. These smart people in real estate around this table are going to help you to figure out answers to those questions. And then on a consistent basis, we all have our knowledge transfer spotlight. So the goal of this group is to have between 10 and 15 members. So that means everybody will have a mastermind opportunity and everybody will have a chance to be a spotlight. So with that, I want to welcome you all, and we're going to get moving on to the topic. And one more thing I forgot to mention is that if you are an existing member, we did make a decision that we're going to let you, if you'd like to add this onto your membership, we're going to give you a steep discount on this as founding members. It's only going to be $700 for the year. Those folks that are not currently Highrise members at all, it's $450 a quarter. So that's kind of the business aspect of it. And now that we got that out of the way, let's get started. So we're going to start off with our first topic. And what I'd like everybody to do is give a quick, literally like, I'm Rick Lackey, I'm the most famous real estate broker in the US. A quick introduction, not the life story, and then answer the question. So it gives us a chance to kill two birds with one stone. So the question, the first round table discussion, which we'll all have a couple minutes to discuss, is how do you feel about the technology changes in what you do in real estate? Kind of a fun one. I know how it's affecting our business in Highrise. I want to find out how it's affecting your businesses. So since I picked on Rick, and he's a long-term Highrise member, Rick, I'm going to have you tell us briefly who you are, and then answer the question if you could.
Sure. I'm a commercial real estate entrepreneur, I guess is the best way to describe it. I've started like Forrest as a tenant rep for about 15 years. I did all of American Express's work for 30 states, and then I ran the 25% of the country for a company called Grubb & Ellis that's now called Newmark. And I did that for the Southeast United States for a while, and then started my own brokerage company. And of course, that's morphed into not just doing brokerage deals, but, you know, principal in this and principal in that, and then other things. I'm also in the electric vehicle charging business and in the hard money lending business, and, you know, all those other things that a real estate entrepreneur does to maximize the relationships.
Awesome.
And as far as the technology, I think technology's been wonderful. I know that I'm not using it as well as I need to, but I really like it. And Zoom has really revolutionized the ability for me to meet with people. I think it's so much easier to get a meeting with somebody on Zoom because it's so much more convenient for them. And they don't feel quite the pressure, I think, when you have to meet them in their office. And so it's been great.
Awesome. Thanks, Rick. Harris, I'm going to go to you next.
Hi, I'm Harris Littman. I actually was looking to do multiple revenue streams. One is that my main vocation is that I'm an account executive for a HVAC controls firm. So I do a lot like the Siemens, Schneider controls. We rep out Delta controls, but as far as the technology part of that, we've really advanced like exponentially over the last couple of years. I personally sell, run, design projects where we go in there and we do like a 360. We design all of the HVAC controls. We write the specs for the design engineers, and then I actually provide analytics where we do energy monitoring, control, load shedding, and we do energy analysis for a lot of our clients. Some of my clients are universities, Fordham University, St. John's University.
Okay.
I do high-end residential apartments, Ackman residents over there in Manhattan. It's just one to mention. And the other thing I do is I do real estate where this is more on a personal level where I have an LLC and I buy properties. Some where I do a partnership with some of my nephew and one other partner, and we go ahead and we rehab certain properties. We're selling a few over in Indianapolis, and then we have a few properties over in Rochester, New York. That was really based on cash flow, and we're looking to get more.
You have to,
Sorry,
yeah, what we want.
I could go on and on and on.
Yeah, I know. What we want to do, otherwise this meeting is going to only be self-introductions.
Okay, sorry.
We don't really want to do that. So what we want to do is I'm Forrest Blake. I'm with Highrise Networks. I do networking.
Okay,
So,
sorry.
so I must, when I said the life story, everybody heard that rather than, okay, we're going to do it really quick, get to the point, and then answer the question. So Harris, how is technology impacting your business?
Well, years ago where you had to do everything on paper, now we do everything virtually. Literally can buy a sight unseen, and as long as we trust the title company and the lawyers that we're dealing with, we didn't even have to trust them. If we went ahead and we knew what the value of the home is and what the cash flow was going to do, we just went for it. So we purchased property sight unseen.
Amazing. That's fantastic. Thanks, Harris. Appreciate it. Michael, you're off mute. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Mike Shear. I work with RCX Capital Group. We help CPAs, RAs, and 1031 exchangers across the country with their 1031 replacement property needs. Leveraging fintech in a massive way, we've developed our own proprietary platform that fosters transactions across a multitude of tax advantage product, but also fosters a collaboration on services on the back end.
Nice. All right, the question on technology.
Yeah, so I think technology it's an arms race, right? I think that if you're not leveraging technology to streamline your business processes and grow your business, you're probably not going to be in business for too long.
Amazing, thank you. One thing we might do also, Harris and Rick and Michael, is if you want to put your LinkedIn contact in the chat, that'll be great if somebody wants to connect with you. Anna, welcome.
Hi, I'm Anna Popov. I am in Seattle area, and I run an interior design studio. We specialize in high-end residential, large renovations, or new construction, brand new. Mostly things that when clients want to put in a significant amount of money and want to make sure that every penny is going to be worth it and will be very, very unique, intelligently spent, and very creative. So they usually go to us. Technology, amazing. Like in a construction industry, in architectural industry, I started from a drafting board. No drafting board anymore. I actually got rid of mine about 5 years ago. But recently, AI, we are playing with AI and I really, really wanted to work. You know, everybody's like, the design community was like, oh my God, the sky is falling. The AI now is going to design everything. Well, I can tell you, AI can design nothing, but it actually is a very useful tool if you, we are learning how to use it, and we use it as a, kind of coming up with some of the concepts, and it's actually is not doing a great job at that either, but it, because it kind of has a mind of its own. It doesn't follow right now, it doesn't know to follow your thought process and your expertise. It thinks it has an idea that it knows better than you do. And trust me, when you are an expert in your field, you don't like that. You don't need that. So using AI, I've been very successful in text, coming up with assistance to social media, blogging, SEO work, some marketing tasks. Design wise, still working on it, still exploring what we can do with that.
Yeah, it sounded like you were describing a millennial. They think they know what they're doing, but they really don't. Yeah. So I have one of those as a daughter, so I know.
Me too.
I'm never right. They're always right. Joel Goodman, hello, sir. Talked on the phone a lot. Good to see you.
Nice to meet you too, Forrest.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so my name is Joel Goldman. I work with First Fidelity Brokerage. We're a company solely owned by PCF Insurance Services. They're a large conglomerate. We're able to work on quite a bit in terms of property and business. We have a niche in this market in terms of cannabis, so we're able to help the landlord or the tenant. In terms of technology, insurance needs more of it, and it needs to happen faster than it's currently happening. But insurance is good for the insurance technology is good for the insurance industry. It will make needless applications go away, and hopefully the questions that need to be answered will be less and move clients along faster in terms of their needs.
Right. Awesome. Anything you can do to get the deal solidified and closed quicker is always a good thing related to insurance or real estate.
Right. The best thing is ask the pointed questions that really need to be answered. Get that over to the underwriters at a reasonable pace, or have algorithms programmed that they understand, oh, the client answered this way, the algorithm knows to give back this type of quote. And the best thing would be to really close the client on that initial phone call. Not that you got to call back and call back. That is 19th and 20th century. We're in the 21st century. Clients want to be closed generally by the second call, not on the 10th anymore.
Right, right. Great, thank you. Hey, Lee from Phoenix, go ahead.
I started my career with Gerald Hines in Houston when Hines was a puppy. Grew up in the Hines organization, left Hines to start up Grubb & Ellis in Texas and Oklahoma, like Rick did. Ran Trammell Crow's operation in Milwaukee, came to Phoenix, head up Perini's acquisition and asset management group, got tired of making money for everybody else 30-something years ago and started my own company.
Nice.
I own a commercial construction company, a commercial flooring company. I'm in the process of buying a commercial janitorial company, and I've been approached to start up an HVAC company. In one of my previous lives, I grew up in the HVAC business, so it's not foreign to me. Technology affects all of those things. I'm also an instructor at the Arizona School of Real Estate and have been for over 20 years. So I get involved with all of these people that come to the classes. And one of the questions that I've incorporated into all my presentations now is, how is AI affecting both the residential and the commercial side of real estate? And it's interesting to hear the comments coming back from some of the major brokerage houses, coming back from some of the smaller houses in Phoenix, and how they are all trying to incorporate AI and that technology into the business. And one of the common things that I hear lately is that their clients are educated, are becoming educated in the AI technology, and they all think that they're real estate gurus, and they want to tell you how that the business really is. So AI is a good tool for us, but I think in the commercial side of this business, it may be a detriment also, because people think that they're as knowledgeable as you may be about your business. That's what I'm seeing coming back from the students in the class.
Nicely. Thank you for that. That's awesome. June.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, my name is June Richardson. I work for Guard Hill Financial, and I am vice president and a loan officer with the company. And as far as technology is concerned, we discussed this a little bit earlier in an early meeting that we had. I think it depends on where you are. Like if you're in the information business, or if a good part of your business is in the is providing information, that's going to be challenging in the next couple of years if you don't, adapt and find a different way of doing things. I feel like, to Anna's point, one of the good things about using ChatGPT or some of the other services is that you have the opportunity to train it. Like you can tell it about yourself, and it then begins to answer questions based on the knowledge you give it. The downside of that is that it takes that knowledge and then gives it to everybody else. So I mean that is certainly the challenge with it. And like anything else, I feel like there are pros and cons to using technology to the extent that it helps you get your job done better. Like, for example, writing marketing campaigns, or just, figuring out more creative ways of creating copy or sales presentations, and all of that is good. But at the same time, I think I don't remember who said it, but there are people who do. It was Lee who said it. There are people who use that as their professor, and then come to you thinking that they know the entire your business better than you do. So and you know what, to be honest, I think that learning curve is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller the more information that it learns. And so, to me, the thing that it can't replace is your personality, your soul, and when somebody buys something, ostensibly they're buying you. And so I don't think that will change. So, I mean, that's my take.
Awesome, June. I remember back in the day where I was not allowed to send a fax of a proposal for an offer. I had to walk it down the street, sit in front of that broker on the other side, and have a conversation. So that's going to be invaluable as we go forward, because it may be rare, and it's a simple thing. So thanks for that, June. Marty, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I'm a guest here today. I'm enjoying the conversation. Marty Smith. I'm a managing director for Kennedy Wilson's San Francisco, Silicon Valley region. Been in this region, in this business for over, I'm using 30 years now. I'll just leave it at 30 years. I oversee the service lines, which is, we're a service company, Kennedy Wilson Properties, and that's basically brokerage and management, which I did for 20 years with my own company. That we then sold our company to Kennedy Wilson, and now we're that region. As far as technology, I'm not really dabbled into the AI, but I would just say overall the technology. When Forrest brought it up, what it does for me, I'm moving faster with all the different kind of technologies, whether it's meetings with the Zoom or whether it's the CRM and collecting that sort of information. But it also, I think for me, there's a capture of information that I'm finding myself utilizing now that I would lose on a Post-it note or the back of some piece of paper that I've jotted down. And that has been invaluable to me, because I think what you mentioned, I wish I were terrible with names, but when there's buying something, they're really buying you, and being able to have the information you've collected to get to know the person better, and being able to call on that quickly and have it in front of you. It has been, it's created more personal relationships, I find, with people than if I had not figured out a way to capture the information that I had gone out and asked, and I wanted to know the answer, but then I lose the answer and before I talk to them a month later. So that's how technology has really benefited me.
Awesome. Thanks, Marty. Appreciate it. Mark Liverant.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Mark Liverant. I'm a real estate attorney at Morgan Lewis and Bacchius, based in Los Angeles, California. I work on real estate deals all over the country, buying, selling, leasing, financing. I've been a member as far as a little bit earlier of Highrise for about 7 years now. It's been great. Looking forward to this new group. I think in my practice, what I'm probably most excited about is AI and how that's going to help and kind of change what we're doing. A lot of folks are afraid of it, but I think if it's coming whether you want it or not. So I think in our profession, our firm in particular is embracing it. We're investing a lot of resources in it. Just from a practical standpoint, little things. I spent a lot of time looking for precedent documents or agreements with specific provisions. I think AI is going to be really helpful in helping to find stuff without having to spend hours digging around for something that someone might have worked on 5 years ago. AI will hopefully instantaneously be able to find something when you just input some information. That said, there's also the privacy aspect too, that anything you put in there is public, so there's a lot of concern about protecting client information as well too. So it's going to be a balance, but it's definitely interesting and exciting, and shows me a lot of stuff that's unexpected as well too. And I want to apologize now. I have to drop off in about 20 minutes for a dentist appointment, unfortunately.
Gotta have clean teeth if you're in real estate. You gotta be able to smile.
Right.
Yeah, Mark, I don't know if you remember, I mean, most of us do, I can tell by looking around the room. We used to have to reinforce floors for the law libraries. Those rolling, remember those rolling things?
Yeah, the shelf, the stacks, yeah.
Unbelievable.
I don't even think we have a library anymore.
Right? I mean, yeah, I remember it started changing. Some of the firms wanted to keep it just because it was nice. It looked nice. It looked official, Now I'll just put a computer up there, huh? Amazing, the changes. Let's see, Catherine, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Forrest, for inviting me. I'm Catherine Hampton with K2S Studio. I am a commercial interior designer. I've worked most of my, let's just go with 30-year career on corporate headquarters. I've done entertainment work and then professional services firms, law firms, things like that. I think the biggest impact that technology has had on me in my business and personally has been with the work from home and all of the online retailing that is going on. I'm just not seeing as many opportunities. A lot of the buildings are vacant, leases are not being renewed, or they're leasing less space, those kinds of things. I'd love to get all of your input on where you see the market going. I've kind of shifted a lot of my work in the last several years to multifamily, some hospitality work, and then high-end residential as well, because I'm seeing a decrease just in the number of deals out there. And I'd like to get your input. Maybe I'm in a little silo and maybe you can show me where the deals are, but I would love to hear your input on that.
Awesome. Yeah, it might tie into our next roundtable discussion a little bit, which is how are the economic factors affecting your business, and certainly in the office world, it's the fact that nobody's there anymore. So it's a challenge. So Suzanne Johns, hello. Another member from the beginning of Dallas.
I know. Hi, Dallas. Yep, this is Dallas. Dallas 1. I'm obviously in real estate. I now train investors. Back in 2008, we went into the flipping business. So I train investors on how to flip, but not just houses. We also do small multifamily so that we can buy them, fix them up, and then we can they can keep one unit, sell all the rest, or whatever they would choose to do. But I'm also a real estate syndicator. I have my SEC Series 22, which is real estate syndication. So instead of trying to do it like most of the guys that are out there doing it off the cuff and under the radar, I'm not. So, and that is on the multifamily side. We haven't jumped into retail or office building yet. I think the best part is going to have to be warehouse, because that's a little bit more popular. But multifamily is hugely attractive to most investors. So we're putting together groups and having a good time with it so far.
Well, how's technology changing your business? Are you doing all your training online?
No, actually, I do some, but I do most of mine in person because we actually walk projects. I'm not like the guy that said that they buy things sight unseen. That's the scariest concept I've ever done in my life. We don't do that, especially with having a Series 22. We have to be able to touch it, feel it, smell it, the whole 9 yards, so that it's a verified asset. So we don't do that, but I'd say 75% is done in person, and I'm flying to different cities to do that. So it doesn't have to be here in Texas. So far, we've had some in Arizona, Phoenix. Actually, I just got back from Phoenix. We're looking at a couple in New Jersey, and then I'm personally looking at one in Boston. So
Wow, nice.
just having a good time.
Awesome.
Only been doing this business for, I don't know, 46 years. Everybody has to have evolutionary things going on. Oh, AI is doing great for us as far as videos, because I've never been a video queen. So it's helped me a lot in learning how to work within YouTube and Instagram on videos with what we're trying to convey. And it gives us a good chance to get in front of people that we wouldn't have had a chance to be in front of before. So that, in that case, it has helped us, because I am nobody that can write great creative things. And as long as I give it an outline, it does a great job for me within seconds. That's like, I'm like, what, how brilliant is that? And as somebody else said, it's somebody else's words, take your words and learn it. Thank God for you guys, because I'm using it, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Thanks, Suzanne. Harvey, how are we doing on the audio? Harvey and I were together in New York a little bit earlier, and he had some audio issues. Let's see.
You tell me, how are we doing?
Perfect. We are good. Excellent.
Yes, yeah, apologies for being late to the party. I spent the last hour and a half resolving those sound issues, so I'm glad it worked out. Hello, everybody. I'm Harvey Rosen. I'm with Lamb Insurance Services. We are headquartered in Midtown Manhattan. I'm currently in Lakewood, Colorado, where I spend a good deal of my time. We are a full-service insurance brokerage firm with a very large concentration on commercial real estate through our commercial real estate insurance services division. We are also actively involved in mergers and acquisitions and looking to build our business both through the acquisition of new clients as well as acquiring smaller to medium-sized brokers throughout the country, which we've done very aggressively in the last 3 years. I spend half my time doing one and half my time doing the other. So my clients are probably mostly in the New York metropolitan area, but the focus of my activities in terms of seeking out potential merger prospects is all over the country.
Did you hear the question about technology? How do you feel technology?
Yes, I'm getting to that. Yeah, I did. I'll take it from. So we are committed to be a leader in technology, and we've always regarded our IT department as something that's invaluable to us. And it's something that we have actively devoted both resource, both manpower as well as dollars. Before the pandemic, we were already remote and actively working on Zoom, and when the pandemic occurred, we were seamlessly adapted to it. So we've used our IT capacity in being able to provide slot rated programs. We've acquired a wholesaler business, and they have put together programs for us as well. We're able to use IT in so many ways, particularly in agency management, where it's really essential to be able to manage your clients, several thousand clients, be able to access their information, be able to answer their questions, being able to resolve claims, those kinds of issues. And it's something that we've embraced, something that we feel it's really important to our business. We have enthusiastically looked to the changes that have occurred and are coming down the pike.
Nice.
I would say that that's kind of our core ideology when it comes to information.
Awesome. Thanks, Harvey. Appreciate it. Well, last but not least, Justin, give us a quick overview of your company and then answer the technology question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Forrest. Good to see you. It's been a while.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, say the same thing Harvey does. I think he and I are kind of in the same business, but we are a full service insurance brokerage. We're nationwide. We're 175 plus locations across the U.S., 2,500 employees, and we do all lines of insurance, everything from property to group benefits. And I'd say, from a technology standpoint, because we are a large firm, I would like to think that we're leading the way when it comes to technology. We utilize a number of platforms. And I even put it in the chat, but I mean, one of the things we can do is we use AI to not only help find where certain clients may not have certain policies that'll automatically let us know, hey, a client, might be missing this coverage, to make sure that everything's rounded out, but also, we use AI modeling for wildfire risk scores. We can obviously use certain tools in our system that can automatically pull permit reports and certain things to help from an underwriting standpoint, which a lot of brokers don't have right now. So, from a competitive advantage and helping underwrite and keep premiums lower, helping people find coverage in this crazy insurance market. There's a lot of carriers leaving the state. It's very difficult to obtain insurance coverage in states like California, Texas, Florida. We're able to kind of make the difference there and help you look good to the insurance carrier and help you procure coverage where someone else may not be able to do that. So from a commercial real estate standpoint, I'd like to think that we're definitely leading the way in that area. Just to add, Harvey, I think there's one other guy on here that's a property and casualty agent. We're always looking. So if someone's thinking about selling their firm or wanting to acquire or get some of those tools and resources, definitely talk to me offline and we can look into a possible acquisition.
Nice. Thanks, Justin. Appreciate it. I forgot.
Thank you.
Maybe because John's going to be our knowledge transfer today. John, you want to give him a quick thing on you? We'll certainly talk about more later.
Sure. It'll set the table for the presentation here shortly. But John Wisco LLC, based in Dallas, Texas. I've been the principal of my own company now since about 2008, and I've been doing construction, audit, and cost control type work for owners and developers across the country since the mid to late 80s. So a lot of experience from that. That's the short answer. It'll set up for our discussion here in a moment. But in terms of the questions, I won't really spend a lot of time, but the technology is certainly whatever it has said, but it's allowed for collaboration. we wouldn't even be able to have a meeting like this really feasibly if it wasn't for technology. It's also provided for remote work for a lot of us. Many of us can and often do work from many different places. We're not tethered to a given place. Allows us to share information, data, documents, something that we spend a lot of time on. And I'll share one thing with the group that is sort of different than perhaps everyone else's perspective on technology, and that's this. We think technology is great, and that the ability to do work remotely and collaborate with people is fantastic, that it's even possible. But we're finding it sometimes to be greatly inefficient because we're constantly in a waiting game and trying to get people to respond, and they forget about you, sort of out of mind, out of sight. And so sometimes sending emails and having calls don't result in productive uses of time. You're still you're looking for and waiting for information. So that's been a little bit different perspective than perhaps what some of the other folks have said. Just
Sure.
something to think about. So I think it's great. It's a double-edged sword. It works, but yet at the same time, to me, sometimes there's no substitute for human interaction.
Yeah.
I'm a proponent of that. In some cases, certainly not in all cases. So with that, the economic factors, I mean, I think we're all affected by some of the similar things that you mentioned in your discussion outline, Forrest. You know,
Yeah, we'll get to
inflation,
that.
interest rates.
Yeah, we'll get to that
We're
next.
all in the same playing field, and sometimes we can leverage it in our favor, and sometimes we can't.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that next. I
Okay.
did also miss Keith Paul. Apologize, Keith.
Oh, good. No worries, Forrest. Yeah, so a lot of other PNC guys on here. What's a little, been doing this 14 years, specifically multifamily, 500 doors or more, and putting together, master programs similar to kind of what Harvey mentioned, doing, master programs for multifamily operators over 500 doors in states that are difficult, like Florida, Texas, Louisiana, parts of Oklahoma. Yeah, so that's my specialty. And then from a technology standpoint, something that's changed or been around for a few years, but it's causing some pain for real estate operators is the ease and frequency that insurance carriers can do roof inspections with drones. So, in the before time, maybe a carrier would come out once a year when they write your insurance initially to do a roof inspection, but now they can do roof inspections quickly and at high frequency using drones. And so that is putting pressure on operators to do roof replacements at, more often than they thought they might have to.
Wow. That's incredible. Fun stuff.
That's a subject near and dear to my heart, roof inspections and roof replacements. Anyway, I understand. I do.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for that. So the next topic, and let's see, we've got 20 minutes, give or take, 20, 15, about 25 minutes. So it gives everybody a couple of minutes a person, and then we're going to hand it off to John after that to talk about cost management in construction, which is always fun for us. So the question is, what is happening and how is the economy affecting you, and what do you see? So basically, we have a bunch of factors. We've got interest rates, we've got inflation, we've got technology, we've got remote workplace. So Catherine, I'm gonna pick on you first because you started talking about the office occupancy, but tell us what economic factors are affecting you, and we'll go from there.
Okay, well, I think, mostly just in my practice, I've primarily focused on workplace, and we're just seeing less of it. So I think the economics of that are pretty obvious. I'd be interested in hearing how the reduced occupancy of these high rises in most of the major cities is affecting the ripple companies, other than just the occupiers of these buildings. So it's been an opportunity for me to pivot, and, I'm kind of pulling out of the trough. But it's been by changing project types. And I'm interested also if anyone has any thoughts about the office to residential conversion of some of these buildings downtown, if anyone knows anything about that.
Yeah, well, let's do this on that. If anybody has, I can see John over there, I think, for scratching his head. Reach out to Catherine directly. She put her information right there in the chat. But yeah, no, for sure, Catherine, that's actually a good topic. Once we identify the members of the group, that's exactly a topic which we would dive into for a half hour. And I think it's good. But I'll jump over to Joel Goldman. Joel, have you seen this office situation impact your business, or what else is impacting your business?
No, I haven't seen it really impact my book too much. Had a couple of office landlords. They were able to sell the buildings, and that was it. Really, they knew they had to move on. Things are a little difficult here in the city. My personal opinion is office will come back one day because people get tired of working from home, because then there becomes almost no difference. Am I at home or am I in my office? Eventually that will turn back around, but it's going to be the way it is now for the time being, but one day I feel it'll turn around.
Joel, I agree with you. As being an office broker for all those years, going through telecommuting and seeing how everybody thought, oh, this is great, we can work at home for 2 or 3 days a week. And then after a certain point in time, that didn't work anymore. The company started bringing everybody back. I think we're in this interesting time. I think there's so much value in having personal connections with people and literally having that water cooler conversation, or walking to Starbucks. It's just so valuable, and we'll be back there. I just don't know when and how much it'll be the same. Maybe it's 4 days a week. Maybe it's more smaller satellite offices where people work out of, so then go catch up and check in with each other. So, who knows? Mark, what's impacting? What do you think about the economic outlook, and what's it impacting your business or your clients?
It's definitely impacted my practice. I work on a lot of deals. So there's definitely been a significant slowdown, especially in the office building market, and a lot of deals have died. There's a lot of capital on the sidelines, so it's definitely been a slower 2 years than I'm accustomed to. We did think there'd be more of an uptick in distressed asset transactions, although I have not seen that as well too. I think a lot of borrowers and lenders are just kicking the can down the road. What I think called extend and pretend, hoping that at some point rates will come down enough that they'll be able to refinance and take out the loan. So it's been interesting. It hasn't been this catastrophic fall off the cliff as a lot of folks predicted. Maybe that's still going to happen, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, Marty, what do you think? What do you think about this? I'm sorry, Michael. I don't know why I saw Marty.
No problem. And so in terms of the economic landscape and how that's impacting our business, since we focus on a lot of 1031 exchange, we're seeing definitely investor shift into products where they can pull out their proceeds up to 85%, invest those in strategies that are non-correlated to real estate. Just given kind of the higher interest rate environment, a lot of our investors are looking to kind of bridge, get out of the 1031 exchange timeline and diversify where they can. That includes large exchangers like family offices, where a bulk of their net worth is tied into real estate. Having the ability to pull out and get more liquid has kind of been the flavor of choice recently.
Wow.
Hey, Forrest, it's Marty. I do have an opinion about it. Sorry, sure. I couldn't find my mute button. I'm having to work off of my phone today because I'm traveling. But anyway, I just want to just chime in that I think that the gentleman, I'm forgive me for not knowing the name, but about having the office come back. That's happening in San Francisco right now. What my feeling is that the national news is painting a darker picture, a dimmer picture, a grayer picture than what you see if you're on the ground, and there's an arbitrage there. And I think that while I think the vacancy may actually go up still, mainly because large leases are starting to burn off, and there are still people that aren't going into the office. We're seeing new deals happen. I think the term this round is green shoots, I think, coming out of the ground, but that's happening. And I do think that that I agree in time that there will be a need to be back to the office. And you're seeing it right now, both really people really struggling with the deals that they made 5 years ago and 10 years ago with the value and the interest rates. But there's also a sense of coming up that that's encouraging.
Yeah, thanks, Marty. Appreciate that. Harris, you have your hands in a lot of pots. So what are your thoughts about the economic future here?
Well, as far as what we do, we've been heavily impacted by that, but not as bad as it would seem. So we have like whole entire buildings that we service, but a lot of the tenants moved out. So in a lot of cases, we lost that account because they shut down, they moved out. But the irony is that the building owners still need to take care of their building. So there still was a need for service there. So we ended up shoring up our accounts by getting the entire building or building out spaces for our clients. I'm definitely in the mindset that you're going to go from you're going to go back to the office. It's cyclical. We've seen it before. I mean, if you remember 9/11, because I'm from the Manhattan area, man, right after that, there was spaces that were empty. They had paper up, the windows were covered, and within 3 to 5 years, people were back in the offices, right? This is a little bit different. It was a pandemic, a little more fear involved, so it would take longer. But we all need to get up and get ready for work. And us staying around the house all day is not conducive to a healthy environment for a long period of time. So I think we all want to get out, and I think eventually that's what's going to happen. But it'll take longer because of the pandemic.
I'm sorry, real quick, it's Marty again. We had a group of downtown property owners and companies in San Francisco meet for breakfast about a month ago, and there were several there, and knowing more that if someone's not willing to come into the office 5 days a week, then they don't get hired. They're going back to 5 days.
That is a criteria that's been passed around by a few of the companies we deal with. They definitely want people back in the office, so it's coming. It's just going to take a little bit longer than anybody would like.
Totally agree.
I mean, that's fantastic to hear. I mean, a lot of my deals were done walking down the street, literally seeing people I need to talk to. In one case, I picked up a couple $100,000 commissionable deal riding up an elevator with somebody I didn't know and being friendly. So, that does not happen from our homes. So, unless it's a home that Anna designed, right, Anna? Anna, why don't you tell us what you're thinking from a more of a residential perspective?
Yeah, well, for us it's been interesting because like the whole economic situation been affecting us as well, and we had a few projects that were on hold, and but I find that we've got, for us, the clientele gotten better, more sophisticated, and I think it's partially to do with technology. You know how we were saying that, like June mentioned, like people are researching. Somebody else mentioned that they have the information, they go, they study, they learn, and we actually like that. We love that, because by the time they come to us, they're more educated, they are more, and they dropped out if they are not qualified, they're self-qualifying, so that takes less effort on our end. And by the time people come to us, they know we are like they learn about it, it's a significant investment. So we do work on high-end residential properties, and it's very, very hard right now, I find nowadays, to find experts and expertise in the area. So what we said is you can find the information overload and is so big. So by the time you find somebody who understands and knows what is it that they're talking about, it's like a relief. It's like a sigh of, oh my God. And I tell the clients, we love to spend your money. We hate wasting it.
Right.
So for us, it's actually right now less projects, but bigger and more exclusive. And we like it. And also we have, we are in Seattle, so we have all those tech giants like everywhere here. I live like 5 minutes away from Microsoft campus, and they're building. And we've never been involved in a commercial building. Like we do a little bit of commercial, but that's boutique commercial, somewhere where we need to come up with like a wow factor, something. So we are getting hired by architects to bring in that reception area or that wow factor situation. But the you come here, you go for a walk 5 minutes away from my house, and a new Microsoft campus is amazing, like buildings upon buildings upon buildings. Somebody is going to occupy it soon.
Sure. Thank you for that. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Lee, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with individual markets. In Phoenix, if you want to buy an office building, you're going to get a 30 to 40% discount from what it paid when somebody bought it for a few years ago. I mean, the buildings here are, for all practical purposes, near empty. And we got the biggest booming market that you can possibly imagine in Phoenix, but you can't build industrial fast enough. You can't build multifamily fast enough. You can't build retail fast enough. But office buildings, I mean, they're just hardly, they don't have any, they just don't have enough people to even begin to fill them up. And talking with, again, I teach at Arizona School of Real Estate, so I get exposed to a broad sector of the community. And a lot of the people that actually are trying to sublease their space, but they still have a strong presence, corporations and stuff like that, they actually enjoy or encourage people not to come to their office, because they actually take and go across the country and use other people as a resource to do work, outsource it to them at a cheaper rate than what they can actually do it in their own office if they have all the people in there.
Yeah.
So it's, it's a double-edged sword, and for some particular segments of the community, the outsourcing is a great tool. For others, I mean, I don't know what we'd do if I had to have everybody working from home here in our office. I mean, I have so many different people involved in so many different businesses. I don't have any idea how we would all communicate if we had to do it, on a Zoom thing. So for my particular application, it doesn't work. Although I have one lady who sits at home and raises her kids, I think, but also assists here in the office with a lot of accounting stuff. But I don't think there's a golden rule for anybody. And I don't know that you're going to see it recover quickly. But I do know a lot of people now are saying, you got to come back to the office or you're fired. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they don't have anybody working for
Yeah.
So the double-edged sword. I mean, people just don't want to come back to the office. It's that simple.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you said something interesting that makes a lot of sense, and we're seeing it, is that if you can't hire somebody at a high rate in San Francisco or New York, or maybe even Phoenix now, well, let's hire somebody from Detroit who has a lower wage. They can do the same job remotely. So if people aren't going to come in the office, the local markets and these better, more expensive markets are going to suffer. And then you have the outsource to the Philippines or India. So there's a lot of things that are by our employees saying we don't want to go in the office. That's starting to affect their ability to have a job. So it's not a great position. So thank you for that, Lee. Keith, Paul, what do you got?
Yeah, so bringing it back to economic factors affecting like my book of business right now is seeing a lot less deal flow in terms of new acquisitions for like current clients buying up new properties, which a few years ago things were crazy, right? There's new acquisition every week. So now the deals that I am seeing, they're all cash deals. They're not as the frequency is way down. And then, yeah, so I'd say that's really the biggest economic factor I'm seeing. It's just reduction in deal flow. The other piece actually is just, skyrocketing insurance costs, right? So, delivering a 50% rate increase on a portfolio right now in Texas is, their best option. And deductibles going way up. So that puts a lot of pressure on operators and owners. So those are the two big ones I'm seeing.
Thanks, Keith. Appreciate that. Yeah, it's interesting that you have to make a buying decision for a piece of property based on what the insurance cost is going to be. I mean, we never heard of that in the history. So other than in the fire zones and things like that. So June, the question about interest rates, we have a expert here, we'll say 30 years in the business, right, June? What are your thoughts?
Yes. Well, I mean, just to Keith's point for a moment, there was a high net worth client of mine who was looking to buy a property out in the Hamptons. And I mean, he could afford to pay cash 3 or 4 times over, but he wanted a mortgage just so that he didn't use all of his cash, who actually decided not to buy because the insurance cost on the property was, I think he told me $30,000 a year to buy in the Hamptons. And he was like, no. So he's not doing it, and so I mean that is a real factor right now for people. So I just wanted to say that before, in terms of how it impacts me and in a broader sense, the entire economy. I mentioned earlier that it depends on the segment of the market you're talking about. I believe that a lot of high net worth people are either purchasing in cash or they're sitting it out until things change. And then you have people who have to buy or have to purchase. And obviously they're dealing with whether or not they can buy what they used to be able to buy versus what they can now. And then you have certain people who have waited longer than they anticipated and are cashing out because they have to at a higher rate. I think there is going to be a reckoning that is already happening, that people realize that the 2% rates they don't exist anymore, and they're not coming back. And so that's also happening. And as I mentioned earlier today, I think we're well positioned for people who are in that first-time home buyer position to prepare themselves for home ownership in the future, if they use this time wisely. So how it's affected me is that, certainly the level of business has dropped significantly, and it's forced me and people in my industry to basically to reimagine what we do and also to look at other places to replace the business that has been lost. So, I mean, I think in an overview, that's what I would say. And as, to the point about people going into the office or not, you know, I think it's too soon. Honestly, I believe it's too soon for us to know exactly what's going to happen. I think there's a reimagining of the world that's happening, you know, globally that is occurring. And there's always going to be a need for community, and no matter what industry you're in. But how that presents itself and how it manifests itself, I think it's too soon to say.
Yeah, thanks, Jan. Appreciate the perspective. Lee, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm old enough that I've been through so many downturns now, I can't even count them anymore. So all you young people who think the rates aren't going to change, I promise you will. All of you that think that this market is static, it's not. Everything that you think you know about real estate, you don't. Because I learn something every day new about commercial real estate, and I've been doing this for over 50 years. So, and I'm sure there's some older people here that'll agree with me. We don't know what's going to happen. And unfortunately, and I'm not making a political statement, but unfortunately, a lot of this is controlled by the people in Washington. And until they change their ways and their tactics, and somehow the other, the pendulum always seems to swing the other way eventually. But I grew up with interest rates at 20%. And people survived those. I mean, I remember people paying 18 to 20% for homes. It was nothing like 7% now. And those were in the Carter years, and everything swung back. And now, you know, we get down to the point where people were paying 2, 3, 4%, and it went like that for years and years and years. But it's usually the government that screws it all up. They were the ones that screwed it up in the 80s. They're the ones that screwed it up in the 90s. They're the ones that screwed it up in 2000. I mean, I don't mean to be negative, and I'm not being political, but that's just the way it happens, and it's going to change. I promise you, the next group is going to change. One way or the other, it's going to change. So
Right. We're not really clear how you feel. No.
Yeah, amen to that. I agree with all those comments, by the way. I think that's a astute observation. I certainly concur.
And
Yeah, I think things are going to change. They always do. It's just a matter of, I'm saying we can't predict what is going to happen.
Yeah.
And the extent of the change, we can't predict. But certainly change is a part of life. That's the only thing we can be sure of is change.
Here's a question I have. What do you think the feasibility is of us switching to a more industrialized nation? I mean, after all, one of the issues we ran into is we had things develop, you know, overseas, and that didn't work out for us too well. So these buildings that are all office spaces and commercial, what's the feasibility that some of them might become industrial?
That'd be great.
I think it's highly unlikely that office buildings will become commercial. But in terms of industrialization of our country, I mean, the fact of the matter is it has, and it is becoming that way. You know, we've now onshored microchips because of the offshoring of it and the challenge that we ran into it. And we are now insisting on manufacturing of electric vehicles and the components to be in the United States as well. And, you know, both presidential candidates, so this is definitely not political, both presidential candidates, you know, are in favor of that, in favor of keeping the manufacturing inside the United States and putting tariffs on anybody that wants to bring it to, you know, to compete with the U.S. manufacturers. So I mean, I think it's happening. I think that very thought is definitely happening already. And I want to concur with something that Lee said about real estate cycles. This is the 7th or 8th cycle I've been through, and when I first got into the business, lawyers had great, big, beautiful private offices with beautiful furniture in them and seating areas and all that. And then they migrated to smaller offices, except the partners had big offices. And then it became smaller, same size offices, and everybody had them except the managing partner had a big office. And now it's a whole lot more hoteling. And so this is not new. I mean, when I was running the American Express account back in the dark ages, we were migrating to what they called the universal grid, where they had consistent cubicles across every American Express office. And the big battle that I had when I would go into a city was I would go in and there'd be a VP that had a big, pretty office, and they were going to move him to an internal 10 by 12 with glass on it, and everybody else was going to sit in cubicles. I mean, I just don't think this is just more of the same. It's just, continuing. You're not going to see new office buildings developed for a long time. Big deal. Big deal. We're going to continue to have new companies established that'll come back and backfill.
Awesome, Rick. Thank you, Rick. Well, Harvey, we're going to get going with John, but a quick comment from you, and then we'll have John talk about construction.
Sure, I just want to make a quick comment about the office situation. In New York City alone, today, there are 46 buildings being converted to residential occupancy so that's 2,100 units.
Wow.
And by the end of the decade, which is only 5.5 years away, the predictions are there'll be 200 buildings converted for a total of 10,000 residential units. Anyway, I wanted to also make a comment about the high cost of insurance and the obstacles or the challenges to my business. We're now in the third year of a hard market. For those of you not in the insurance world and aren't familiar with insurance speak, hard markets is what happens when the insurance premiums go up. There's reduced capacity. There is less insurance companies getting into the business. Competition is not high. And probably the overriding reason is natural disasters. Clearly, catastrophic occurrences over the last couple of years have caused the insurance markets to just go out of whack. That is not this is not a political statement. That is not going to lessen. It's only going to be increased in intensity over the next couple of years. So with that bright outlook on things, I'll give it up back to Barb.
Appreciate it. All right, John, it's your floor. I appreciate you talking a little bit about construction costs and how that's going to impact us here. So go for it.
Okay, well, I appreciate it, Forrest. For all of you that are still with us, I know a few have dropped off, but Forrest reached out to me and asked if I would serve in this knowledge transfer spotlight. And so we have a diverse background of folks, and this may not all be right. All the material may not be right in each of your wheelhouses. However, I'm going to go through real quickly. Forrest gave a nice title, which I think is good, because a lot of people tend to view construction as, it's a very old technology, relatively speaking, and people think, it's not that complicated. We just decide we're going to build something and we do it and we move on. But clearly, if anyone knows anything about construction, we struggle with problems, the simple stuff like being completed on time, under budget, and at the desired quality level. Those of you that have done personal projects in construction can probably relate to a variety of things I'm going to talk about. So I gave a brief background on what we do, and just to reiterate or emphasize, we primarily perform and provide construction audit and contract cost control advisory services to owners and developers across the nation. So any owner, real estate developer, university, whoever that's building anything and hiring construction service providers, mostly general contractors and CMs or construction managers, but sometimes architects and engineers also. They hire us to help them make sure they don't get overcharged, make sure they level the playing field, make sure that they have processes and procedures in place to minimize what can and often does go wrong in the industry. So that's kind of where we sit in the construction spectrum. And with that in mind, I've boiled it down to, and I've been preaching this gospel, if you want to call it that, for a long time. Been doing this since the 80s, I mentioned. Forrest said, how do we prevent construction cost issues before the project starts? And my simple two-part strategy is this. You obtain a good contract and you manage it throughout the construction life cycle. And they're both easier said than done, but the notion, let me speak to the latter first, about managing the contract once you get it. I'll come back to the contract in a moment. Those organizations that are passive in their approach to construction and figure they'll get a contract and away we go, and they'll let their contractors and advisors sort of help them and run the project. If you're not actively engaged and fully engaged and paying attention to the details, more than likely you're going to end up with the short end of the stick. And that's just, I say that with a matter of fact type conviction. I think there's a cause and effect there. For people who aren't paying attention, you're likely to encounter problems. So contract administration, which is a fancier way of saying managing your deal, let me speak to that first. There's a couple of things that we do to help. One of them is in the whole area of change orders. Those of you that, again, have experience in construction know that change orders are an animal that has to be dealt with. And so anyone who approaches a project with the thought of, we're not going to have any change orders, and I've had clients tell me that, what's your change order strategy? We're not going to have any. Well, that sounds good, and I hope you're able to achieve that, but the reality is that's not usually the way it goes. Change orders cannot be, the risk of change orders cannot be completely mitigated. So the strategy to me should be minimize the likelihood that change orders will occur. And that is a different subject, but that's the first part of the strategy. And then the second part of it is knowing that you're going to have knowing that you're going to have change orders, you want to minimize the cost of the changes that do occur. And we do that and we address it in the contract. In addition to change orders, there are pay applications that are submitted monthly that memorialize the billings, and those billings are based on the contract in terms of the compensation basis. So yeah, I'm going to get to contracts in a moment, but fundamentally speaking, the two types of contracts are lump sum and cost plus, and the cost plus are often coupled with a GMP, which is an acronym for guaranteed maximum price. So those pay applications are developed with the contract in mind that they are in conjunction with. The last piece of the contract administration, I've just put a general category called audits, and they fall into a couple different buckets. So we have what we call the pre-contract audit, which speaks directly to preventing cost issues before the project starts. And this to me is one of the most powerful techniques that any owner or developer has at their disposal, and yet so often they fail to capitalize on that. And specifically what a pre-contract audit is you're looking at and auditing, if you will, if you want to use that term, you're evaluating data that is being used to negotiate your construction agreement. And you're making sure that you have your eyes open when you agree to things, thinking that your counterpart is speaking truthfully to you and telling you, this is what our costs are. This is what our overhead rate is. This is what our labor rates are. This is what our labor burden costs are. So rather than you just trusting them and agreeing to those rates, you actually, in effect, review them prior to signing on the dotted line. Because I'm sure many of you understand and can recognize once you sign that contract, it's very difficult to undo it because you've made an agreement. So absent fraud or misrepresentation, it's not always easy. In fact, it's very difficult to break a legally binding agreement. In addition to pre-contract review processes, there are interim reviews and final audits that are often overlaid on projects. And the one thing I like to say, if you do nothing else, we like to talk about the final accounting. This is an area that to me often goes overlooked, where at the end of the project, someone with specific knowledge about all of the interworking pieces of the contract and what's been billed and what things need to be trued up and how it's all supposed to be final billed, that someone's involved in the verification and actual accounting of the final billing and settlement of all things. Again, that's often overlooked, and I can't tell you how many times, if we did nothing else other than the final accounting, it saved a whole bunch of money. So that's the contract administration part. So let me focus on the construction part, specifically as memorialized by the contract. And what I said is obtaining a good contract. Well, that sounds like a good idea, but to me, understanding what can go wrong is an important precursor to knowing what to put in your contract so that, quote unquote, it's good. To get the right language in there, to refine it and enhance it. My guess is some of you have familiarity with the American Institute of Architects and the AIA documents that they promulgate. And those documents are common even today. They were really common years ago, and they're still common today, but many owners are taking those documents and modifying them and enhancing them, and for good reason. Those agreements between owners and contractors really provide the nuts and bolts of your business deal. And it's just as important as to selecting the right contract as it is to how you procure it, whether you're negotiating or competitive bidding. And then it's also coupled with enhancing and making sure you get the right language within that agreement. So let me contrast the lump sum and the GMP real quickly. We get into the type of contracts. Lump sum is pretty simple to understand. It's also known as a fixed price agreement, where someone tells you, based on your design team submits a set of plans and specifications, say, we want this, build this, how much? Everyone can relate to that. It's how we buy refrigerators and automobiles. We just look at the finished product and we say, how much? And we'll often comparatively shop and say, you know, that refrigerator is X, this one's Y. Well, why is it different? Well, it has different features. Same with automobiles. And these are very simple examples, of course. Construction's a little bit, it's not a commodity-based item, so it's a little more difficult to make that simplification. But in a very real sense, if you give a set of plans and drawings to a contractor, they can go through an estimating process and tell you and provide a bid to you and say, we'll build that building for you or this facility for you, and it's going to be 25 million, it's going to be 175 million, whatever the case may be. And if you agree to that, what you're going to pay them at the end of the day is that price, regardless of anything else. It doesn't matter what they actually spend. It doesn't matter how many hours they spent, what problems occurred. You're going to pay them the lump sum price, period. And the only thing that's going to change that are change orders to that lump sum price. So that's certainly one avenue that people pursue. And it's, I guess I would say this, in the commercial world, in commercial construction, it's not the avenue that most owners and developers pursue. Yes, they do it, but the more common type of agreement that organizations are engaging in is the so-called GMP agreement, or the guaranteed maximum price agreement. And what differentiates this agreement from the lump sum is that whereas in lump sum, you're not paying on the basis of cost, you're paying on the, which is lump sum, but in a GMP environment, you are paying on the basis of cost. Specifically, you're agreeing to reimburse your contractor for the actual cost of work plus a fee, not to exceed a guaranteed maximum price. So if you agree to a $25 million GMP, at the end of the day, you're going to pay the lesser of that contractor's actual cost plus his fee, that again is defined contractually, or the guaranteed maximum price. So to make it simple, if he spends $23 million, you owe him 23. If he spends 27 million, you owe him 25 in my example. And because of that, and because the GMP also offers transparency and accountability, a lot of owners have elected to do business on this basis. And it provides a lot more visibility into what's really going on. Now, some people don't like it. I like to give this example. If you have a problem with I'll go back to the simple example. You have a problem with your vehicle and you take it into an auto repair facility or your dealer, and you say, I'm having a problem with my transmission or my brakes or whatever the case may be, and I need you to look at it and then tell me. What's the very first question that you want to know? You don't really want to know what's wrong. I mean, you'd like to know what's wrong, but more importantly, you want to know how much. How much is it going to cost? And you're never really happy with the answer. It doesn't matter what they tell you. It's like, oh man, I didn't want to spend that. So that's beside the point. But if you could say, if they tell you it's going to be $800 to repair this, after you hem and haw and think about it a little bit, reluctantly, you might agree. Alternatively, you could say, you know what, I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to direct you to repair that vehicle on a T&M basis with a not to exceed. So you keep track of the parts you buy, the labor hours you spend, and I'll pay you the cost of the labor plus the parts, and I'll give you a 10% fee on it, as long as it won't exceed the $800. And that's kind of what GMP contracting is all about in the commercial world. And when you have a contract like that, you need to carefully define what you're going to reimburse, and you also need to define what you're not going to reimburse. And those costs that are known as non-reimbursable costs are intended to be covered by the fee. So when you agree to pay 4%, 5%, 10%, whatever that number is, that fee number is intended to compensate a contractor for their overhead and profit. And the overhead covers the non-reimbursable costs. And then, of course, they're entitled to earn a profit for fair work performed. So in a nutshell, that's why a lot of owners are choosing this. But again, to contrast the two, many owners don't want to get into all this nuance of accounting and looking at pay applications that are as thick as a phone book because it has all the supporting cost data in it. And they prefer to say, you know what, I just want to cut a deal, and whatever that number is, we're going to manage to that number, and we're going to do our best to minimize change orders and hope for the best. And again, you have differing philosophies out there, and I'm not saying one is wrong and one's right. What I'm saying is that our experience over many, many years is that most people are opting for that GMP methodology. And the great thing about the GMP methodology, in my opinion, is that even if you did nothing, even if you chose to be passive in your management of that contract, you still have the opportunity to work with honest contractors and honest people who work for contractors, and you can still get treated fairly and end up paying less than you would have had you done it lump sum. So that opportunity is out there and it still works, and we see the benefits of that. So, in a nutshell, without getting too detailed, I mean, I used to teach 2.5-day seminars on this stuff, and we get into all the details about what to look for, where the skeletons are hidden, how you get overcharged on change orders, what tricks they pull with contingency and fee calculations. We can talk about all that stuff, but in the interest of just brevity, I've boiled it down to that simple strategy. It's like getting a good contract, and we just went through this exercise with an owner who wanted to develop a property out in Southwest Colorado, and we said, this contract that your contractor is proposing is like what a third grader would use negotiating on a playground. You don't want that. So let us help you get something that's more professional.
Yeah.
Um,
And,
but-
John, we reached a half hour.
right.
I know we crammed it in quick. I will not turn off the Zoom. I just want to allow anybody who needed to move to their next meeting, they could. But is there any questions for John? If I can keep this Zoom open for 20 more minutes. I mean, it was awesome. I don't know how you did that in 19 minutes. It was amazing.
Well, I knew you told me I only had 15 minutes and I knew it was going to be pushing it, but I wanted to give just the basic bare bones approach to what we
Sure.
do and why we do it.
Tour clap for 19 minutes. Go ahead, questions.
I'd say one thing, the guys who change all the change orders is not the contractor, it's the architect. So.
Yeah, well, actually, I will second that, Lee. I'll say this, it's not just the architect. Owners are their own worst enemies. You said you had a lot of experience with Hines. You guys probably did more scope changes you could imagine in building stuff. So the owners are sometimes their own worst enemy. They, oh, you know what? Let's do this while we're at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's change in midstream. Let's go take care of your units and instead of putting in, something that's as good a unit, but doesn't have the carrier name on it,
That's right.
And a third more for the mechanical equipment than what you would have, it's necessary. So yeah, those kinds of crazy things.
Yeah,
Goodbye, guys.
sure. But that really underscores the importance of having good change order strategy, good change order management, and good provisions in the contract to deal with the pricing of change orders. And that's really what our focus is.
Any other
So
questions?
we would have change order logs. Excuse me. We would have change order logs and we'd have like maybe 24 change orders. And in the end, we got negotiated down pennies on the dollar anyway. Even though at the beginning I was actually very stringent because I used to run a lot of projects, and I would actually say the change order is this. Give me an agreement on that. Sign the document saying that you agree to this price. And even after all of that, they would still at the very end hold you out all the way to the end and negotiate you the pennies on the dollars.
Yep. Right.
Wow.
It's an elementary business, but it gets exponentially complicated the further you get into the weeds.
Yeah.
Harvey has a question there. Go ahead, Harvey. Harvey, you're on mute. Harvey, you're on mute.
Sorry. John, how much of your work occurs at the back end when the project is pretty much done? And how much occurs while the project is ongoing and being built?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say at least half of our work is on the back end. A lot of times let me put it this way. I'm going to answer it this way. Ideally, we'd like to get called before the contract is signed and say, you know what, let us review the contract, let us refine it, let us get the processes ironed out, set up your contract administration, and make sure your contract is strengthened, and then we'll be involved on the interim as well. But we don't get a call when everything's fine and hunky-dory and rosy. We usually get called when everything has gone to hell in a handbasket and everything's gone wrong. Costs are out of control. People are thinking that someone is hiding the ball, stealing, or characterize it however you want. And so most of our work is driven by, especially for new clients, like we have a problem or we think we have a problem. We need you to audit this and figure it out. But your recovery, and we do have cost recoveries, the recovery pales in comparison to what you could have saved if you prevented the money from going out the door in the first place. And so, yes, we do a lot of interim and final cost audits, lots of them. Because people don't perceive that up front, well, there's nothing to audit. We don't have anything to look at. Everything's fine right now. And maybe you'll get lucky. And people do get lucky in this business. They deal with good people and they're treated fairly. So I'm not a guy that's going to bash the industry and say that all contractors are bad and all people that work for contractors are bad. There's some good folks in the industry. But there's a lot of people that, have proved untrustworthy is the kindest way to put it.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, Anna, did you have another question?
Yeah, I wanted just to say, John, that in my previous life, before I was running my own residential firm, I was in commercial institutional construction industry, and my official job title, I was running operations in a company in a construction management, project management. My
Right.
official job title was fan cleaner. And I feel like what you were describing right now, where you are being called when a major disaster is, that was my job to come in and fix financial construction code. Just the entire thing is a disaster and fixing it. And I'm so glad to hear that you're saying that the maximum price, guaranteed maximum price contracts are in and more popular in a construction, in a commercial, so on a commercial side. I think that's great. I just wanted to say that I
Yeah,
really
good
happy to
comment.
hear that. Mhm.
Yeah, a lot of people buy into the notion of them. They serve a good purpose, and if nothing else, one of the things I love about them is the transparency and the visibility it provides for you. So you have the right by contract to look. Whereas in a lump sum, if you ask for some actual cost information, they give you the willy the mope. You can't see that. I'm sorry. That's lump sum, none of your business.
Yeah.
And that's not an effective answer to me, a guy that looks at costs all the time.
So as part of the GMP, what would you have, like AIA documents with schedule of values? And is that a good way to, as far as the accounting of it? Because these things can be accounting driven. If the schedule of values are right, it's
Yes.
really easy to follow the project.
Yes, all projects, lump sum or GMP, are all driven by a schedule of values, but how you build that schedule of values and how you count for them are different.
Yeah.
But yes, it's all driven by the schedule of values. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you, John. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I believe it was a great meeting. Loved having everybody here. I will reach out to each of you individually, see if you're ready to join. We are questioning a July meeting because we think that a lot of you are going to be on vacation. But we will float that depending on the interest, and we'll see. But I just want to thank everybody for being here. Great meeting, and we'll see you guys soon.